On the show, I'm delighted. Rafe Heydel-Mankoo, political commentator, broadcaster, historian, and generally a top man. How are you, sir?
Wonderful to be with you.
Listen, somebody smart with paintings and a bow tie, usually a terrible quality. Rafe, we've worked together enough. I'm not going to apologise for my language. I'm going to try and not lose my whatever. What the hell is happening in a country that used to pride itself on, I don't know, yes, doing the right thing, but being a paragon of virtue and decency and I don't know, a shining light. We now say to people, break in, take from us, go in a hotel, and now we pay them to leave. We get them drivers to take them wherever they want, to the detriment, and I know people hate this word and I'll keep saying it, to the detriment, Rafe, of the indigenous population.
Our institutions are broken. It's as simple as that. We've had a long march through the institutions since the time of Tony Blair. The progressive left captured our institutions, and the people that now run those institutions are cuckoos in the nest. They bear no comparison to the generations who built them and ran them so well in previous generations. And a large part of that is because, of course, we now prioritize identity over excellence and competence in terms of the people who run those institutions as well. I mean, take the Home Office, right? It's the Home Office that has the contracts that are dealing with these millions of pounds worth of taxi rides that are going out. The Home Office is now a fifth column in this country, I would say, that does not actively have the interests of the British nation at heart. You know, they approve far more asylum applications than anyone does in Europe, and they're approving applications that have been rejected by European countries. We need to call out the Home Office. It is not fit for purpose. It should be removed from the entire migrant process and we should give that to another department entirely, because they really have no control about all of this. And it's, you know, it's the indignity and it's the complete lack of understanding of how the British public will feel when they hear that someone has been sent for a £600 return taxi journey for a knee checkup. There was one NHS psychiatrist who said, I've got patients who've been waiting for years for a schizophrenia appointment. £600 would have covered that.
Do you see, this is, and again, apologies, because I do it the whole time, I don't mean to, but does nobody, I mean, we say glibly, don't we, what, the institutions, you said it, and I know that you know far more than me, you know, institutions have been taken over by these mad people, but does nobody care about the optics, or does nobody to this point really, have they not cared about what I call Joe Public, with the greatest respect, feels? Because as far as long as I sit here with Mike and the others, right, I out of this bubble, right, there are people all over this country, I know this for a fact, who are going, why have I lived my life correctly and done everything properly and never asked for anything, when it seems that we have a society now that wants to be so apologist in its approach that it, you know, people who commit crime get treated better than the victims. People who come here get treated better than people who have lived here. And I'm all for helping when we can, but we can't afford to do what we can. And I think more so when you are putting your own people at the back of the queue. And I know I keep saying it, Rafe, but it makes perfect sense to me. It seems to me that government, politicians, institutions have forgotten that they got put there by the people who voted for them, the British people.
Exactly right. And this is the crux of the whole issue. This is what sticks in the craw of the British nation. It's the sense of injustice. You know, the most central British quality is a belief in fair play.
Yeah.
You know, we even have the expression, it's just not cricket. And that's precisely what they can see happening here. You know, they see people who've their family members and their friends who've been on housing waiting lists for years, suddenly leapfrogged over by a family or young men who've just arrived here within the space of a few weeks. They see the queues of the GP appointments. They can't get GP appointments. They see the problem of all of our infrastructure and our public services being strained by things like this. You know, think about cancer patients who are having to play second fiddle to a migrant who's going for a checkup or a scan or whatever. And the problem here, which you've identified, is that this is all about the civil service. Why do they do this? Because they are never held accountable. Politicians will have to bite the bullet and resign if there's a scandal with the civil service. There's no repercussion, no reverberation.
But is it naive? All right, but is it naive of me to want? And maybe Nigel Farage isn't the man, or maybe he is. I've no idea. He's the only one that says he's going to give it a go. Is it naive of me to think, hope I should say again, that I want my politicians to go? This is fundamentally wrong. This isn't even about left or right. This is about British people. This isn't about the colour of your skin. There have been plenty of people who have come to this country for years and worked and built businesses and employed people who I would consider as patriotic, or even more so, or even more annoyed about this than people like me. But is it not time for a politician to say, I'm not worried about the greasy pole or the kickback, Trump-esque maybe. I'm not bothered about what the mainstream media are going to say or what the institutions. I am going to put in front of you a plan. I'm going to work day and night and kick back, and I'll take you on the journey, and I'll tell you the rough, and I'll tell you the good, and I'll tell you the bad, and there'll be good and bad. But you know what? I'm going to give it my utmost, because I believe this country's on a precipice. And if we don't achieve this together, I'll walk, right? But rest assured, I will work 24/7 to implement something you voted for. Why do I not see that or hear that, apart from at this moment Nigel Farage?
Well, again, because our politics is broken. There is a uniparty. You can only get a cigarette paper between Labour and the Tories. They may talk tough, but nothing ever gets done. Dominic Cummings was the only person in the Conservative Party who had a plan to reform the civil service. And I've often wondered if he hadn't gone to have his eyes tested at wherever it was, he had his eyes tested, and he had been able to implement that civil service reform, how things might have changed. I think reform is very exciting in its plans for change, but even there, the rot is so deep, the big state, the blob, the establishment is so strong in this country that they will try every trick in the book to thwart.
Who are they?
The civil servants, the institutions, all of the support staff, everyone that a politician relies on to enact legislation will be gunning for the party. We saw that happening with the Tories. Yeah. Why weren't they able to actually implement any of their strategies? Why were they blocked at every corner?
Did you, Rafe, think? I mean, I felt very let down by Boris Johnson. I've been very honest, and I'd say it to his face. I believed 100% in him, and I thought it was a changing day when he was elected, and I thought that he would rule for 10 to 15 years, and he fundamentally moved his party to a different position from the party I believed it was. He seemed to concentrate on other things than the promises, the levelling up and the security and all those sorts of things, and I think that's why people were attracted in the first place to Farage. And whether that works or not, I get that. It's just I don't understand how politicians, okay, so you've got 100 civil servants telling you wrong. I'm democratically elected. Do it. If you don't do it, then I'll sack you. Then maybe I'm being naive and stupid. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not that easy. But I'm talking about politicians who did try to get things done. Yeah. Boris Johnson is an entirely different kettle of fish. This was a man who betrayed the British people. This was a man who chose to reinterpret take back control to mean that we can decide how many migrants to come in. That's not what people voted for. People voted to stop illegal immigration, to stop mass migration. And we saw the Boris wave of immigration under Boris Johnson that made Tony Blair's immigration look like a stream. There was a flood of immigration. We had more immigration under Boris Johnson than we'd had for the previous 1,000 years.
Well, it is tonight, by the way, on Harry Cole's show, people, from 10 o'clock, Harry Cole Saves the West. He's got Boris Johnson, first big interview for a long time on our station, Harry Cole from 10 o'clock, and he is asking Boris Johnson those questions. Just a couple of bizarre stories today. When I say bizarre, we've talked about asylum seekers getting taxes. We've talked about £2,000. So Starmer made this big thing today about, it's the latest thing, it's Wednesday. I'm going to reclaim the flag, because in his mind, everybody who, waves the flag is presumably far right. Again, missing the point completely. Do you know about this Jeremy Newmark, the Labour leader of Hertsmere? Have you seen this clip? This, if you're tuning in to Talk Drive, is utterly, utterly disgusting. This is Jeremy Newmark, Labour leader of Hertsmere Council, standing up and slagging off a group that want to reclaim their flag. Have a listen, have a watch.
Operation Raise the Colours, an organised and orchestrated attempt by a bunch of criminals, extremists, nonces to hijack our national flag.
Rafe, can you help me out? I can't. I mean, that's beyond the pale, isn't it?
What a vile, despicable cretin he is. Let's make no bones about this. So many on the left loathe the flag, loathe patriotism. Remember Lady Nugent, Emily Thornberry, in that tweet she put out of a English flag flying from a house with a white van in it. The sneering condescension towards that. Remember what George Orwell said. He said an intellectual would rather be caught stealing from a church poor box than standing up for the national anthem. You know, the decent people of England, they should regard this as a slap in the face. They've come out on the streets to raise the flag, not in an act of aggression, not in an act of bombastic jingoism. It's the act of a community that feels threatened.
Yeah.
And they genuinely feel that they are losing their English identity. So when they're flying the flag, it's not far right. It's being flown almost as a symbol of distress, to rally the people at a time of peril. And this is a situation entirely created by the British establishment, by the left, by this metropolitan liberal elite. I mean, the reality is that for the past quarter of a century, the English have been betrayed and abandoned by their leaders, by people like Starmer and this vile cretin in this council, and they've been failed and mistreated by their institutions. You know, we've seen English identity being attacked and traduced, English history, English culture, British history, British culture denigrated, undermined, whilst other identities are being celebrated. And we see minority cultures deliberately elevated over the predominant British culture, and that sticks in the craw.
I couldn't agree more, and I think it's very... I was sitting here listening to that, and vile cretin's a great description, thinking, can you imagine if somebody on the right actually said something like that about, I don't know, a group on the left, you know, people celebrating whatever. It's extraordinary, isn't it? I wanted to get your take on another week of brilliance for Keir Starmer. Yesterday was a low point in my life. Sunday he'd recognised Palestine. We all know that's simply because he's trying to make sure the Muslim vote doesn't abandon him as his popularity ebbs away. But then he did something yesterday that I thought was as nauseating as anything. You know, Rosh Hashanah, religious festival day for the Jewish people. Out comes this message on X saying, I love all Jewish people and happy this, and we're all together and they're hostages and blah, blah, blah. And you end up looking at that and thinking, there's nothing tangible I can put my hat on, but I don't ever believe the directions that you go in. How did you receive the news about, recognising Palestine and then his embrace of Judaism not?
Well, it just goes to show you that this man has absolutely no political acumen. He's got no political instinct. I mean, this man is not a politician. He's a career prosecutor, and he's an automaton. You can see that he's completely devoid of emotion, not to understand how this would go down with the Jewish community. Look, it's quite clear that, Britain, Canada and Australia, all now run by centre-left parties, have now recognised Palestine. That wouldn't have happened if you had the Tories in Canada, the Liberals in Australia, and, say, Reform in this country. Unfortunately, we've had this happen. They have rewarded Hamas for the vile atrocities of October the 7th. That's the message that Hamas and others extremists are taking. If you do this sort of a thing, you will get what you want in the end. And now, of course, we've lost a major bargaining chip in terms of trying to get the hostages back, in terms of trying to work towards a two-state solution. We had that thing about being able to offer as a carrot the recognition of the state of Palestine, all gone. And it will be seen as a slap in the face by the Jewish community in this country, whether or not they agree with what's happening, the ghastly incidents happening in Gaza. That's irrelevant. They can see where clearly the loyalties of people like Starmer now lie.
Couldn't agree more. Finally, how can we do a whole section with you without mentioning one of you're a big fan of Sadiq Khan, aren't you, Rafe? Trump yesterday, I mean, this was absolutely, look, let's get out the Sharia law thing, let's move aside a couple of comments like the paracetamol, autism. Amazing. No teleprompter. The FBI, by the way, looking into people who might have stopped the elevator. That's how much in control he is. But he basically slagged most of the UN. He destroyed net zero, which I applauded loudly. And then he turned to Sadiq Khan, called him the worst leader in the world, said London is a hellhole, knife crime and crime. This man is the worst mayor. Trump today, according to Sadiq Khan, is racist, sexist and Islamophobic. And London is a brilliant city, safer than most major US cities, and we continue to welcome thousands, hundreds of thousands of Americans every single year. Sadiq Khan.
Sadiq Khan is a liar, first and foremost. London is not safer than many or most major US cities. In terms of homicide, London is safer. But he's a liar otherwise, because did you know that the violent crime rate in London is larger than New York and Chicago combined?
Wow.
It's 900 per 100,000 in London. It's 491 per 100,000 in New York. It's something like 300 or 100 in Chicago, right? So it's now, can you believe that London is now more dangerous than New York and Chicago combined? Listen, this man talks about racism. Look, judge a person by the company he keeps. Remember, Sadiq Khan was a solicitor for the Nation of Islam in 2001, 2002. That's the group run by Louis Farrakhan, a vile anti-Semite black nationalist Muslim who described Jews as bloodsuckers and called Hitler a very great man. And Sadiq Khan tried to overturn the ban on preventing him coming into this country. Sadiq Khan is the man when he was a lawyer for the Muslim Council of Britain who defended the vile Muslim scholar Dr. Yusuf al-Qaradawi, saying that he's not an extremist. This is a man who justifies wife beatings, discusses whether homosexuals should be killed, justifies suicide bombings. That's the sort of company that he keeps, let alone the fact, of course, that he has essentially allowed Sharia courts to act in this country. Yes, Trump was wrong by saying that Sharia courts are being introduced into London, but there is subtle Sharia existing in this city. Remember the Muslim patrol in East London that was patrolling and had declared East London a Sharia zone, was recording and attacking and shouting at women who were drinking alcohol, couples holding hands, gay men holding hands, attacking Muslim shop owners who sold alcohol. Sharia is present. We have 85 Sharia courts in this country. Many of them are in London. A third of Muslims want Sharia law in this country. Britain is now the Western leader for Sharia, and other countries are coming here to learn how to export Sharia to those countries. So don't take any heed to what Sadiq Khan knows. He tries to portray himself as this progressive centre-left soft Labour person. He's far more close to Jeremy Corbyn. Remember, he nominated Jeremy Corbyn to become leader of the Labour Party, and the fact that his biggest supporters are people like there's other nutcases on the left, Diane Abbott and Dawn Butler and Owen Jones, tells you exactly where his politics are.
Listen, it is absolutely great to have you, and you'll come back, won't you? We want you on regularly, Rafe. Really good to have you. Don't forget as well, fellow at the New Culture Forum, excellent organisation, Rafe Heydel-Mankoo. Thank you very much indeed. Being on Drive Time, 6:22, live across the UK. We get some calls on. We've gone mad today. Crazy number of calls. 0344